The silence inside the stellar dawn was the kind that came before death. Commander Zeltar pressed his long, blue-scaled fingers against the control panel, but the readings never changed. The ship's engines had been dead for 6 days now, and the life support systems were failing one by one. "Commander, oxygen levels are down to 30%, Dr. Villana said from her station. Her voice was calm, but Zeltar could hear the fear underneath. They all knew what those numbers meant. In 2 more days, maybe 3 if they were lucky, they would all be dead. The Stellar Dawn had been on a simple mission. They were supposed to study the strange rocks and gases in the Corvin Nebula. It was meant to be safe work, the kind that young scientists did to gain experience. 12 crew members, all from different worlds in the Zephyrian Coalition, had volunteered for the 3-month journey. Now they were going to die together in the dark. Zeltar walked to the main viewing window and looked out at the swirling colors of the nebula. Purple and green gases moved like slow smoke around their ship. It was beautiful, he thought. Not a bad place to spend your final moments, but he would rather be home with his family on Zephyr Prime. "Any response to our distress signal?" he asked without turning around. "Nothing, sir," Communications Officer Kelron replied. His young voice cracked a little. "The nebula is blocking most of our transmissions. Even if someone heard us, they would have trouble finding us in all this interference." Dr. Villana stood up from her science station and joined Zeltar at the window. She was older than the rest of them, with gray streaks in her blue scales and wise yellow eyes. "The nearest coalition patrol is 8 days away," she said quietly. "Even if they received our signal and left immediately, they would not reach us in time." Zeltar nodded. They had gone over the numbers many times. The math was simple and cruel. Their ship was too far from the main space routes. The nebula made communication almost impossible, and their life support was failing faster than they had hoped. "Should we record our final messages now?" Dr. Villana asked. Around the small bridge, the other crew members looked up from their stations. Navigator Pelta was barely out of school, her scales still bright with youth. Engineer Molek had 3 children waiting for him at home. They all had families, friends, people who loved them. "Yes," Zeltar said finally. "We should do that while we still have power for the recording system." One by one, the crew members took turns in the small communication booth. They spoke to their families, told them they were brave, that they were not afraid. Most of them lied about that last part. Zeltar could hear some of them crying when they thought no one was listening. When his turn came, Zeltar looked into the recording device and tried to find the right words for his wife and 2 young sons. "Lyra, my heart," he began, his voice steady. "By the time you see this, I will be with the ancestors. I want you to know that I am not afraid. The crew has been brave and we faced the end together. Tell the boys that their father loved them more than all the stars in the sky. Tell them to be good, to study hard, and to always help others when they can." He paused, thinking of his sons' faces. Little Koltar with his curious eyes, always asking questions about space and ships. Young Veltar, who loved to draw pictures of the family together. "I am sorry I will not be there to see them grow up," he continued. "I am sorry I will not be there to hold you when you are sad, or to celebrate with you when good things happen. But remember that love does not die with the body. Somewhere among the stars, I will always be watching over you." He turned off the recording and sat quietly for a moment. Then he returned to the bridge to continue the wait. Over the next day, the situation grew worse. The heating system failed completely and frost began to form on the walls. The crew wore all their warm clothes and huddled together for body heat. The oxygen recyclers were working at only half power, making the air thin and hard to breathe. "I keep checking the sensors," Communications Officer Kelron said, his breath visible in the cold air. "Nothing out there but dust and gas. No ships, no signals, nothing. The Coalition has probably marked us as lost by now," Navigator Pelta said. She was wrapped in 3 coats but still shivering. "They will wait another week for our scheduled check-in. Then they will declare us missing. Maybe they will send a search team," Engineer Molek suggested. But his voice held no real hope. Dr. Villana shook her head. "They would not send anyone into the nebula without a very good reason. It is too dangerous and we are only one small research ship. They would not risk more lives for us." The truth of her words settled over them like another layer of cold. In the grand scheme of the galaxy, they were not important. They were just 12 scientists on a routine mission. The Coalition had thousands of ships and millions of citizens to worry about. They could not risk a rescue mission for one lost crew. As the second day passed, some of the crew began to get sick. The combination of cold, bad air, and stress was taking its toll. Dr. Villana did her best to help them with what medical supplies they had, but there was only so much she could do. "At least we will not suffer for long," she told Zeltar privately. "When the oxygen runs out, we will simply go to sleep and not wake up. It is a peaceful way to die." Zeltar nodded, but he did not feel peaceful. He felt angry. Angry at the mission planners who had sent them into the nebula without proper backup systems. Angry at the universe for being so vast and uncaring. Angry at himself for volunteering for this mission instead of staying home with his family. On the third day, young navigator Pelta made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I have been thinking," she said, her voice weak but determined. "We should not just wait here to die. We should try to move the ship." Engineer Molek looked up from where he was lying on the floor trying to conserve energy. "The engines are completely dead. We have no power for movement. But we have the emergency thrusters," Pelta insisted. "They are meant for docking maneuvers, but they might be enough to push us toward the edge of the nebula. If we can get clear of the interference, maybe we can send a stronger distress signal." The crew looked at each other with something that might have been hope. It was a desperate plan, but it was better than doing nothing. "How long would it take?" Zeltar asked. Pelta worked quickly at her navigation console, running calculations. 2 days to reach the nebula edge if the thrusters hold out. But we would use up most of our remaining power, meaning we would have even less time for life support, Dr. Villana pointed out. "But we might have a chance," Molek said, sitting up with effort. "A small chance is better than no chance." Zeltar made the decision quickly. "Do it. Fire the thrusters and set course for the nebula edge." The ship shuddered as the small emergency engines came to life. It was not much, but they were moving again. For the first time in days, the crew felt something other than despair. But as they began their slow journey toward the edge of the nebula, none of them noticed the faint sensor contact that appeared briefly on their screens. Something large was moving in the darkness behind them, hidden in the swirling gases. Something that had been watching them for quite some time. Captain Jake Harrison stood on the bridge of the Iron Resolve, watching the strange colors of the Corvin Nebula fill the main screen. The massive warship had been on patrol for 3 weeks now, checking the outer edges of known space for any signs of trouble. The Iron Resolve was one of Earth's newest ships, built for deep space missions that might last months or even years. She carried a crew of 200, enough firepower to level a small moon, and the most advanced sensors that human technology could build. But despite all that power and technology, they had not seen another living soul in weeks. "Captain," Lieutenant Amy Foster called from the communications station, "I'm picking up something weird on the long-range sensors." Jake walked over to look at her screen. Amy was young, maybe 25, but she was the best communications officer he had ever worked with. She had a gift for finding signals that other people missed. "What kind of weird?" he asked. Amy pointed to a series of wavy lines on her screen. "It's coming from inside the nebula. The pattern is too regular to be natural, but it's not like any human transmission I've ever seen. It's almost like what? Like someone is calling for help, sir. But the language is completely unknown." Jake felt his heart beat a little faster. In all of human history, no one had ever made contact with intelligent alien life. There had been theories, hopes, and dreams, but no proof. If Amy was right, this could be the most important moment in human civilization. "Can you clean up the signal?" "I'm trying, sir, but the nebula is causing massive interference. It's like trying to hear a whisper during a thunderstorm." Chief Engineer Pete Collins looked up from his station near the back of the bridge. He was an older man with gray hair and hands that were always dirty from working on the ship's systems. "Captain, if we want a better look at that signal, we'll have to go deeper into the nebula. But I should warn you, all that electromagnetic interference could damage our systems." Jake considered the options. Earth Command had sent them out here to explore and make contact with any intelligent life they might find. This could be exactly what they were looking for, but he also had a responsibility to keep his crew safe. "How dangerous would it be?" he asked Pete. "Hard to say, sir. The nebula is full of charged particles and electromagnetic fields. Our shields should protect us, but if we go too deep, we might end up as lost as whoever is sending that signal." Navigation Officer Lisa Martinez spoke up from her station. "I could plot a course that follows the safer areas, sir. It would take longer, but it would reduce the risk to our systems." Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for his decision. These men and women had signed up to explore the unknown, to push the boundaries of human knowledge. This was exactly the kind of situation they had trained for. Amy, how long has that signal been transmitting? Based on the pattern, I'd say at least a week, maybe longer. But sir, it's getting weaker. Whatever is sending it, I don't think it has much power left. That decided it for Jake. If there were intelligent beings in trouble, he could not just ignore them and fly away. It went against everything he believed about being human. Lisa, plot that safe course. Pete, I want you to monitor our systems every second. If anything starts to fail, we pull back immediately. Amy, keep working on that signal. I want to know everything you can tell me about it. Aye, sir, all three replied. The iron resolve turned toward the nebula and began moving deeper into the swirling clouds of gas and dust. The ship's powerful engines pushed them forward at a steady pace, but Jake could feel the tension on the bridge. Everyone knew they were flying into the unknown. As they traveled deeper, the interference got worse. The lights flickered occasionally, and some of the smaller electronic devices began to malfunction. But Pete kept the main systems running, and Amy continued to work on the mysterious signal. I'm getting something, Amy called out after an hour of travel. The signal is much stronger now. I can make out distinct patterns, almost like language. But sir, there's something else. What? I think there are multiple voices. It's not just one transmission. It sounds like several different people taking turns speaking. Dr. Susan Wright, the ship's medical officer, had come up to the bridge to listen. She was a quiet woman who usually stayed in her medical bay, but the possibility of meeting aliens had drawn her up to see what was happening. If they're taking turns speaking, they might be recording messages, she suggested. That's what people do when they think they're going to die. The bridge fell silent at those words. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. If Dr. Wright was correct, then they were listening to the last words of dying beings. How much farther to the signal source? He asked Lisa. Another 2 hours at our current speed, sir. But I'm having trouble with the navigation computers. The interference is affecting our sensors. Amy, can you tell me anything else about the transmission? Amy worked at her station for several more minutes, adjusting frequencies and running the signal through different filters. Sir, I think I can make out numbers. Mathematical sequences. It looks like they're trying to send basic information about their location and situation. Can you understand any of it? The math is universal, sir. 2 + 2 = 4, no matter what species you are. Based on what I'm seeing, I think they're telling us that they have 12 people, and that their life support is failing. Jake felt his stomach tighten. 12 people somewhere out there in the darkness waiting to die. He thought about his own crew, his own family back on Earth. No one should have to face death alone in the emptiness of space. Pete, can we go any faster? Not safely, sir. If we push too hard, we might damage the engines. Then we'd be in the same situation they are. Another hour passed. The signal got stronger, and Amy was able to extract more information. The beings sending the distress call seemed to be on a small ship with failing power. They had been stranded for almost a week, and their oxygen was running out. Captain, Lisa announced, I'm picking up a solid contact on short-range sensors. It's about the size of a research vessel, moving very slowly on emergency thrusters. Jake moved to the sensor station and looked at the display. There it was. A small dot of light in the darkness, a ship full of living beings who had almost given up hope. Amy, can we send them a message? Let them know we're coming? I can try, sir, but I don't know their language. I could send back the same mathematical sequences they've been using. That might at least tell them that someone heard them. Do it. Amy worked quickly at her console, then transmitted a simple mathematical response to the alien ship. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then suddenly, the transmission from the alien vessel changed. Instead of the regular distress pattern, they received a burst of excited, rapid communication. I think they know we're here, Amy said with a smile, and I think they're very happy about it. Jake looked at his crew. They were about to make first contact with an alien species. But instead of the formal planned meeting that everyone had imagined, it was going to be a desperate rescue mission. Red alert, he announced. All hands to rescue stations. Pete, I want damage control teams standing by. Susan, prepare the medical bay for possible alien patients. Lisa, bring us alongside that ship as carefully as you can. As the iron resolve moved closer to the alien vessel, Jake wondered what they would find. Were these beings friendly, hostile, completely different from anything humans could understand? He was about to find out. And whatever happened next would change the course of human history forever. The small ship appeared on their main screen, and Jake could see that it was badly damaged. Parts of its hull were dark, and it was tumbling slowly as it tried to maintain course with its tiny emergency engines. Amy, keep trying to establish communication. I want to know who they are and how we can help them. Yes, sir. Captain, whatever happens next, I'm glad we found them. Jake nodded, so was he. In a universe that often seemed cold and empty, it felt good to know that humans were not alone, and it felt even better to know that when other beings were in trouble, humans would risk their own lives to help them. That, he thought, was what it truly meant to be human. Commander Zeltar stared at the massive ship that had appeared on their failing sensors. It was larger than any vessel he had ever seen, dark and angular like a weapon made of metal and purpose. For a moment, terror filled his heart. Had they been rescued only to be destroyed by some unknown warship? Commander, Dr. Villana said, her voice filled with wonder. They're responding to our distress call. Look at this. On her science console, mathematical symbols were appearing in neat, ordered rows. Simple equations, basic formulas, the kind of universal language that any intelligent species would understand. 2 + 2 = 4. The square root of 9 = 3. The circumference of a circle equals pi times its diameter. They're talking to us, young navigator Pelta whispered. Someone is actually talking to us. Zeltar felt hope stir in his chest for the first time in days. But he also felt caution. They knew nothing about these strangers. Were they friendly, hostile? Did they want to help? Or were they simply curious about the dying aliens they had found? Can we respond? He asked. Dr. Villana worked quickly at her console. Yes, but our power is very low. I can send basic mathematical responses, but not for long. Do it. Let them know we understand. On the human ship, Lieutenant Amy Foster watched the alien responses appear on her screen. Captain, they're answering. They understand what we're saying. Captain Jake Harrison leaned over her shoulder to look at the display. The alien mathematics were slightly different in style, but the meaning was clear. These beings were intelligent and they were trying to communicate. Can you tell them we want to help? Amy thought for a moment, then began typing. She sent the mathematical symbol for 12, followed by symbols representing danger and time running out. Then she sent symbols that meant help was coming, safety, rescue. On the stellar dawn, the crew watched in amazement as the message appeared. They want to help us, Dr. Villana said, her voice breaking with emotion. These strangers, whoever they are, they want to save our lives. The human ship moved closer, and through the main viewing window, the aliens could see it clearly for the first time. It was enormous, at least 10 times the size of their research vessel. Weapon ports lined its hull and its engines glowed with barely contained power. That is a warship, Engineer Moloch said nervously. Why would a military vessel be out here in the nebula? Maybe they are patrolling, Commander Zeltar suggested. Or maybe they are explorers like us. Or maybe they are pirates, Communications Officer Kelron said quietly. Dr. Villana shook her head. Pirates would not waste time with mathematics. They would either attack us or ignore us. These beings are trying to talk to us. That means they see us as equals, not prey. The human ship came to a stop about a kilometer away, close enough to help but far enough to avoid any accidental collision. On the Iron Resolve, Captain Harrison was meeting with his senior officers in the ready room next to the bridge. What do we know about them? He asked. Dr. Susan Wright consulted her tablet. Based on the mathematical exchanges, they appear to be highly intelligent. Their ship design suggests they are peaceful explorers rather than warriors. The vessel is clearly built for science, not combat. Chief Engineer Pete Collins nodded. Their technology is different from ours, but it's sophisticated. The fact that they got this far into the nebula shows they know what they're doing, or at least they did before their ship broke down. Any idea what they look like? Jake asked. None, sir, Amy replied. But they've been very patient with our attempts to communicate. That suggests they are reasonable beings who understand that this situation is difficult for both sides. Jake made his decision. We're going to help them. I don't care what they look like or where they come from. They're in trouble, and we have the power to save them. That's what humans do. He turned to Pete. Can we dock with their ship? I don't think so, sir. Their docking systems are completely different from ours. But we could bring them aboard using the shuttle bay. The problem is we don't know if they can breathe our air or if our atmosphere would poison them. Dr. Wright spoke up. I could prepare isolation chambers in the medical bay. We could bring them aboard safely and then figure out their biological needs. How long do they have? Amy checked her communications log. Based on their distress signals, maybe 6 hours. Probably less, Jake stood up. Then we move fast. Pete, I want you to prepare a boarding party. Take environmental suits and emergency life support gear. Amy, keep working on communication. Try to tell them what we're planning. Susan, get the medical bay ready for anything. As the human crew prepared for the rescue, the aliens watched their ship with growing hope and fear. Hope that they might actually survive this ordeal. Fear of what these unknown beings might want in return. Should we trust them? Young Pelta asked. Commander Zeltar looked around at his dying crew. Molek was coughing from the bad air. Several others were barely conscious from the cold and lack of oxygen. They were going to die anyway if nothing changed. We have no choice, he said simply. Either we trust them, or we die here. Dr. Velana was still working at her console, trying to maintain communication with the human ship. Suddenly, new symbols appeared on her screen. Pictures this time instead of just mathematics. Simple drawings that showed the human ship opening, smaller craft coming out, beings in protective suits moving between the ships. They want to send people over here, she announced. They're showing us their rescue plan. The pictures continued. The humans would wear environmental suits to protect themselves from the alien atmosphere. They would bring equipment to help stabilize the failing life support. They would move the aliens to safety on their ship. They have thought this through carefully, Zeltar observed. They are not rushing in without a plan. That is good. On the human ship, the boarding party was getting ready. Sergeant Rick Davis led a team of 6 Marines, all wearing full environmental gear. They carried extra oxygen tanks, medical supplies, and portable power units. Remember, Jake told them over the intercom. These beings may look nothing like us. Don't let that frighten you. They're people in trouble and people help people. That's the human way. Understood, sir, Rick replied. We'll bring them home. The humans launched a small shuttle toward the alien ship. As it approached, Dr. Velana managed to open the Stellar Dawn's docking bay doors, using the last of their reserve power. The human shuttle landed inside the alien ship, and Rick's team stepped out into an environment unlike anything they had ever seen. The air was thin and cold, filled with strange scents. The gravity was slightly lighter than Earth normal, and the ship itself was built with curves and organic lines that no human engineer would have chosen. But it was clearly the work of intelligent beings. Every surface had a purpose, every system was carefully designed. These aliens might be different, but they were definitely people. Rick activated his communicator. Captain, we're inside the alien vessel. It's cold as hell and the air is barely breathable, but the ship is amazing. These folks know how to build things. The first alien they encountered was Dr. Velana. She appeared around a corner, moving slowly because of the thin air. When she saw the humans in their environmental suits, she stopped and stared. The humans were tall and bulky in their protective gear. They moved with purpose and confidence, but most importantly, they had come. These strange beings had risked their own ship and their own lives to help creatures they had never seen before. Rick stepped forward and raised his hand in what he hoped was a universal gesture of peace. Dr. Velana understood immediately and raised her own hand in response. First contact had been made, not in some formal ceremony or planned meeting, but in the dark cold of a dying ship, between beings who were risking everything to help each other. And in that moment, both species learned something important about the universe. They were not alone, and when disaster struck, there were those who would come to help, no matter how strange or different they might be. Rick spoke into his communicator, knowing that Dr. Velana could not understand his words, but hoping she could understand his tone. Don't worry, he said gently. We're here to help. You're going to be okay. Dr. Velana could not understand the language, but she understood the kindness in his voice. For the first time in days, she truly believed they might survive this ordeal. The rescue had begun. Sergeant Rick Davis had seen many dangerous situations in his military career, but nothing had prepared him for walking through a dying alien spaceship. The corridors of the Stellar Dawn were beautiful in their own way, with smooth walls that curved like the inside of a seashell. But they were also freezing cold, filled with thin air that would kill a human in minutes. Thompson Martinez started setting up the portable life support units, he ordered through his helmet radio. Wilson Garcia, help me get these people to the shuttle bay. We need to move fast. The human boarding party had brought everything they could think of: extra oxygen tanks, heating units, medical supplies, and portable power generators. But as Chief Engineer Pete Collins had warned, they were working with alien technology that they did not understand. Dr. Villana led them through the ship to where the rest of the crew was waiting. Rick's first sight of the aliens was a shock, but not because they looked frightening. They looked so much like people that it took his breath away. The aliens were taller than humans, with blue-scaled skin and large yellow eyes. Their faces were more angular than human faces, and their hands had long, delicate fingers. But they sat together in small groups, comforting each other, caring for the sick ones just like humans would do in the same situation. "My God," whispered Private Thompson, "they're just like us." Commander Zeltar stood up slowly when he saw the humans enter the room. He was clearly the leader, carrying himself with quiet dignity even in these desperate circumstances. He looked at Rick and nodded respectfully. Rick nodded back, then pointed to himself. "Rick," he said simply. The alien commander understood immediately. He pointed to himself and said something that sounded like Zeltar. "Zeltar," Rick repeated, trying to get the pronunciation right. The alien smiled, and Rick realized that smiles were apparently universal. It was a good start, but the situation was getting worse by the minute. Rick could see that several of the aliens were barely conscious from lack of oxygen. The youngest one, who looked like she might be a teenager, was shivering so hard she could barely stand. "We need to get them out of here now," he told his team. "Thompson, how are those life support units coming?" "I've got 2 of them running, Sarge, but I don't know if they're helping much. The air in here is really bad." Rick made a quick decision. "Change of plan. We're not going to try to fix their ship. We're going to evacuate them right now. Garcia, get back to the shuttle and tell Captain Harrison we need the medical bay ready for 12 patients." "Yes, sir." The evacuation was harder than Rick had expected. The aliens were weak from days of bad air and cold temperatures. Several of them could barely walk. And the humans had to be careful not to damage their environmental suits in the unfamiliar alien corridors. Dr. Villana proved to be invaluable. She spoke to the other aliens in their own language, calming their fears and explaining what was happening. Rick could not understand her words, but her tone was reassuring and confident. "She's telling them we're here to help," he said to Thompson. "Smart lady." The first group of aliens was loaded into the human shuttle, wrapped in emergency blankets and breathing from portable oxygen tanks. Rick stayed behind with half his team to help the remaining aliens. That was when the real problems began. "Sarge," Private Martinez called from the alien ship's engine room. "You need to see this." Rick made his way through the corridors to where Martinez was examining the alien ship's power systems. What he saw made his blood run cold. The engine section was filled with radiation. Not enough to kill immediately, but more than enough to cause serious damage over time. And it was getting worse as the ship's failing systems lost the ability to contain it. "How bad is it?" Rick asked. "Bad, Sarge. The containment field around their power core is failing. In another hour or 2, this whole section of the ship is going to be flooded with deadly radiation." Rick cursed under his breath. That explained why the aliens were getting sicker faster than they should have from just bad air and cold. They were being slowly poisoned by radiation from their own engines. "Can we fix it?" "Not with the equipment we brought. We'd need specialized tools and a lot more time than we have." Rick activated his radio. "Captain Harrison, this is Davis. We have a big problem down here." On the bridge of the Iron Resolve, Jake listened to the report with growing alarm. The alien ship was not just running out of power and air. It was becoming a radioactive death trap. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Maybe 2 hours before the radiation levels become lethal, sir. But some of these aliens are already showing signs of radiation sickness." Jake looked at Dr. Wright, who was standing next to him on the bridge. "Can you treat radiation poisoning in an alien species?" "I don't know, sir. I'll have to figure out their biology first, then adapt our treatments. It won't be easy." "Amy, are you making any progress with communication?" Lieutenant Foster looked up from her station. "Yes, sir. I've established basic vocabulary. I can tell them simple things like danger, safety, come with us. But complex medical information is still beyond what we can manage." Jake made his decision. "Rick, get everyone out of there right now. Don't worry about being gentle. Speed is more important than comfort at this point." "Copy that, sir." "What about their ship?" "Leave it. We'll come back later with proper equipment if we can. Right now, saving lives is the only thing that matters." The final evacuation was a race against time. Rick and his team worked frantically to get the remaining aliens to the shuttle bay. Commander Zeltar insisted on being the last one to leave his ship, which Rick understood completely. He would have done the same thing. As they prepared to leave the stellar dawn, Zeltar looked around the bridge one last time. This ship had been his home for 3 months. It contained years of scientific research, personal belongings, and memories. But all of that was meaningless compared to the lives of his crew. He turned to Rick and nodded. Time to go. The human shuttle was overcrowded with 12 aliens and 6 humans, but it made the short trip to the Iron Resolve safely. As they flew away from the dying alien ship, Rick could see the radiation levels spiking on his instruments. "We got out just in time," he told his team. "Another hour in there and we all would have been dead." On the Iron Resolve, Dr. Wright was preparing for the medical challenge of her career. She had 12 alien patients with unknown biology, suffering from radiation exposure, oxygen deprivation, and hypothermia, and she had no idea how their bodies worked or what treatments would help or harm them. But she also had something else. Dr. Velana. The alien scientist was weak from her ordeal, but she was still conscious and eager to help. Through basic drawings and simple mathematics, she began to teach Dr. Wright about Zephyrian physiology. "Their metabolism is slower than ours," Dr. Wright explained to her medical team. "They need less oxygen, but they're more sensitive to temperature changes. The radiation has damaged their equivalent of red blood cells, so they're not getting enough oxygen to their tissues." "Can we treat that?" asked medical technician Johnson. "I think so. Our anti-radiation drugs should work on them, just in smaller doses. And we can use oxygen therapy to help with their breathing problems." As the medical team worked to save the alien crew, Captain Harrison stood in the shuttle bay, watching the 12 beings who represented humanity's first contact with intelligent alien life. They were frightened, sick, and far from home. But they were alive, and they would stay alive if he had anything to say about it. Commander Zeltar was sitting on a medical gurney, breathing oxygen from a human mask that Dr. Wright had modified to fit his face. He looked up at Jake and spoke a few words in his own language. "What do you think he's saying?" Jake asked Amy, who was standing nearby with her translation equipment. Amy listened to her computer's analysis of the alien speech patterns. "I think he's saying thank you," she replied. "I think he's grateful." Jake nodded to Zeltar and smiled. The alien commander smiled back and repeated the same words he had spoken before. "Thank you," Jake said in English, hoping that his tone would convey the meaning even if the words were strange. Zeltar tilted his head, listening to the human sounds. Then he tried to repeat them. Then, "You," he said slowly, his pronunciation strange but recognizable. It was the first word spoken in a human language by an alien being, and it was a word that expressed the best part of what it meant to be human. The willingness to help others even when they were completely different from yourself. The rescue was complete. But Jake had the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Captain Jake Harrison was in the medical bay watching Dr. Wright work on the alien patients when the alarm began to sound. The sharp, urgent tone echoed through the corridors of the Iron Resolve, bringing everyone instantly alert. "Captain, to the bridge," came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Tony Baker over the intercom. "We have incoming ships and they don't look friendly." Jake ran through the corridors, reaching the bridge in less than a minute. What he saw on the main screen made his heart sink. 3 ships were approaching through the nebula, and they were clearly built for war. Dark hulls covered with weapon ports, angular designs meant to strike fear into their enemies. "Report," Jake ordered, as he took his captain's chair. Tony stepped forward. 3 vessels, sir, approaching from coordinates 127 Mark 84. They're moving fast and they're not responding to our hails. Sensor readings suggest heavy weapons and military-grade shields. Any identification? Nothing in our databases, sir. But I'm picking up unusual energy signatures. These ships are armed with weapons we don't recognize. Jake activated the ship-wide intercom. "All hands, this is the captain. We have unknown vessels approaching our position. All crew to battle stations. This is not a drill." Throughout the ship, humans ran to their posts. In the engineering section, Pete Collins began bringing all systems to full power. In the weapons control room, Gunnery Sergeant Helen Parker started charging the main cannons. On the bridge, everyone worked with the smooth efficiency of a well-trained crew. But in the medical bay, Commander Zeltar heard the alarms and knew immediately what was happening. He tried to sit up on his medical bed, fighting against the weakness in his body. "Doctor," he said to Dr. Wright, using one of the few English words he had learned. "Danger, bad ships." Dr. Wright looked confused, so Zeltar turned to Dr. Valana, who was in the bed next to his. He spoke rapidly in their own language, his voice filled with fear and anger. Dr. Valana listened, then tried to stand up. She was still weak from the radiation poisoning, but she forced herself to move. "I must speak to your captain," she said in broken English. "Those ships? They are the ones who hurt us." Dr. Wright helped support the alien scientist as they made their way to the bridge. When they arrived, Jake saw immediately that the aliens were terrified. "Captain," Dr. Valana said, struggling with the unfamiliar words. "Those ships, they are Corvin raiders. They attack peaceful ships. They made our engines stop working." Jake felt a cold anger growing in his chest. "They disabled your ship on purpose?" Commander Zeltar, who had insisted on coming to the bridge despite his injuries, nodded firmly. "Corvin pirates," he said in heavily accented English. "They hurt ship. Wait for us to die, then take everything." The pieces fell into place in Jake's mind. The alien research ship had not suffered an accident. They had been attacked, left to die slowly in the nebula while the pirates waited to salvage their ship and cargo. It was cold-blooded murder, carried out in the cruelest way possible. "They were going to let you die," he said, looking at the two alien leaders. "Yes," Dr. Valana replied sadly. "Corvin do not kill quickly. They like to watch others suffer." Jake turned to face the main screen where the 3 pirate ships were getting closer. "How many people are on those ships?" Commander Zeltar spoke to Dr. Valana in their own language, then she translated. "He says maybe 50 or 60 pirates total. They are cruel and dangerous, but not as many as your big ship carries." "Captain," Tony reported, "the lead ship is hailing us. Put them on screen." The main display changed to show the interior of the lead pirate ship. The creature that appeared was unlike anything the humans had seen before. It had gray, leathery skin and multiple arms with small black eyes that seemed to hold no warmth or compassion. When it spoke, its voice was harsh and grating. Lieutenant Amy Foster worked quickly at her station, running the alien speech through her translation programs. "Sir, I can't translate everything, but I think they're demanding that we hand over the survivors and leave the area." The pirate commander continued speaking, making gestures with its multiple arms. Its tone became more threatening. "Now they're saying that this is their territory and any ships found here belong to them by right of salvage." Amy continued. "They want us to surrender our ship as well." Jake stood up from his captain's chair and faced the screen. Even though the pirate could not understand English, Jake wanted his tone to be perfectly clear. "This is Captain Harrison of the Earth vessel Iron Resolve. The beings you see behind me are under our protection. We will not surrender them. We will not surrender our ship. And we will not leave this area. If you want a fight, you'll get one." Amy quickly translated the message into basic mathematical concepts and broadcast it to the pirate ship. The alien commander listened, then began making what were clearly angry gestures. The transmission cut off abruptly. "Well," Jake said quietly, "I guess that's their answer. Tony, what's the tactical situation?" Lieutenant Commander Baker checked his instruments. 3 ships, sir. The lead vessel is about half our size but heavily armed. The other 2 are smaller, probably fast attack ships. They're spreading out to try to surround us." "Pete," Jake called to engineering over the intercom. "How are our systems?" "All green, Captain. Main engines at full power, weapons charged and ready. Shields at maximum." "Helen," he called to the weapons control room. "What do you think of their ships?" Gunnery Sergeant Parker's voice came back steady and confident. "They're tough, sir, but they're built for attacking helpless victims. I don't think they've ever faced a real warship before." Jake looked at the 2 alien leaders who were still standing on his bridge. Commander Zeltar was leaning heavily against Dr. Wright, but his eyes were fierce with determination. Dr. Valana was trembling, but not with fear. She was angry. "You should leave us," Zeltar said quietly. "Save your ship. Save your people. We are already dead." Jake shook his head firmly. "No one dies today except the pirates. That's a promise." He turned back to his crew. "All right, people. These raiders have been terrorizing innocent beings for who knows how long. They attack scientists and leave them to die in the cold darkness of space. They think might makes right, and they think fear is more powerful than courage." Jake's voice grew stronger as he spoke. "They're about to learn something about humans. We don't abandon people in need. We don't run from bullies, and we sure as hell don't let murderers go unpunished. The crew responded with quiet determination. This was why they had joined the military, why they had volunteered for deep space missions. Not to conquer or dominate, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. "Sir," Tony reported, "the pirates are moving into attack formation. I'm reading weapons charging on all 3 vessels. Red alert. All hands prepare for combat." On the alien ships, the pirate commanders were confident. They had attacked dozens of vessels in this nebula over the years. Sometimes the crews fought back, but it never mattered. The raiders were faster, more experienced, and completely ruthless. This strange new ship might be larger than their usual victims, but the outcome would be the same. They had no idea what they were about to face. Commander Zeltar squeezed Dr. Wright's arm gently. "Your captain. He is brave. But the Corvin are many. They have been killers for generations." Dr. Wright looked at the alien commander with compassion. "You don't know humans very well yet," she said. "We're about to show you what we do to bullies who hurt innocent people." On the main screen, the 3 pirate ships completed their attack formation and began accelerating toward the Iron Resolve. Energy weapons charged, missile tubes loaded, confident in their victory. They were about to discover that humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of war. And when humans fought to protect others, they fought with a fury that could shake the stars themselves. Jake settled into his captain's chair and watched the enemy approach. "This is for every innocent being they've ever hurt," he said quietly. "And this is to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten people under human protection." The battle was about to begin. The first shot came from the lead pirate ship, a bright beam of energy that struck the Iron Resolve's shields and scattered harmlessly into space. Captain Jake Harrison watched the attack with calm eyes, then turned to his weapons officer. "Helen, you may fire when ready." Gunnery Sergeant Parker had been waiting for those words. Her fingers moved across her control panel with practiced precision, and the Iron Resolve's main cannons came to life. The humans had learned to fight during thousands of years of warfare on Earth. They had refined their weapons through countless conflicts, always seeking to become more effective, more deadly, more precise. The pirates were about to experience the end result of that evolution. The Iron Resolve's first salvo was not a beam of energy or a simple projectile. It was a cloud of kinetic kill vehicles, each one a small missile packed with dense metal and guided by its own computer brain. They moved at a significant fraction of light speed, impossible to dodge and nearly impossible to stop. The lead pirate ship tried to defend itself. Its shields flared as the first impacts hit, and for a moment it seemed like the alien defenses might hold. Then the remaining missiles punched through the barriers like they were made of paper. Commander Zeltar watched in amazement as the enemy ship simply came apart. No explosion, no dramatic fire. The kinetic weapons hit with such force that the pirate vessel disintegrated, turning from a functional warship into a cloud of scattered debris in less than 3 seconds. "Impossible," Dr. Vellana whispered in her own language. The 2 remaining pirate ships seemed to pause, as if their commanders could not believe what they had just witnessed. Their leader, the ship they had followed for years of successful raids, was simply gone. That hesitation cost them dearly. "Tony, target the ship on the left," Jake ordered. Helen hit them with the main gun. The Iron Resolve's primary weapon was not a kinetic kill system. It was something far more terrifying, a particle beam accelerator that could punch a hole through a small moon. When it fired, space itself seemed to bend around the beam of coherent energy. The second pirate ship tried to evade, turning hard to port and firing its engines at maximum power. But the human weapon moved at the speed of light, and no ship could outrun light itself. The beam struck the pirate vessel amidships and burned completely through it. For a moment, the ship continued moving forward as if nothing had happened. Then it broke in half, both pieces tumbling away into the darkness of the nebula. The third pirate ship, the smallest and fastest of the group, decided that discretion was the better part of valor. It turned and began running at full speed, desperate to escape from these terrifying humans. "Should we pursue, sir?" Tony asked. Jake considered for a moment. The fleeing ship posed no immediate threat, and his primary concern was the safety of the alien survivors. But he also knew that if this pirate escaped, it would return with reinforcements, and other innocent beings would die. "Amy, can you contact that ship?" Lieutenant Foster worked at her station for a moment. "Yes, sir. They're listening. Tell them this. If they ever return to this nebula, if they ever attack another peaceful ship, if we ever hear of them hurting innocent beings, we will hunt them down. Tell them that this nebula is now under human protection." Amy translated the message and broadcast it to the fleeing pirate. The response came back almost immediately. "They acknowledge the message, sir, and they're broadcasting it on all frequencies, probably warning other pirate groups." "Good. Let them spread the word. Let every raider and killer in this part of space know that humans protect the innocent." Jake turned to look at Commander Zeltar and Dr. Vellana. Both aliens were staring at him with expressions of amazement and something that might have been awe. "Your ships," Zeltar said slowly. "They are very powerful. Our weapons are effective," Jake replied. "But that's not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is that we use those weapons to protect others, not to prey on the weak." Dr. Vellana stepped forward, still weak from her injuries but determined to speak. "In all the history of our people, we have never seen anything like this. A species that risks its own lives to save strangers, then fights to protect them without asking for payment or reward. That's what people do," Jake said simply. "When someone needs help, you help them. When bullies threaten the innocent, you stop the bullies. It's not complicated." But Dr. Vellana shook her head. "You do not understand. In our galaxy, there are hundreds of species. Some are peaceful, some are aggressive, some are neutral. But none of them do what you have just done. None of them fight wars to protect strangers." She paused, looking around the bridge at the human crew. "Most species fight for territory, for resources, for dominance. They might defend their own people, but they do not risk themselves for others. You humans, you are something new." Commander Zeltar nodded in agreement. "The Corvin have been raiding in this nebula for many years. Everyone knows about them. But no one has ever tried to stop them because it was not their problem. It was not their people being hurt. Well, it's our problem now," Jake said firmly. "And as long as the Iron Resolve is in this sector, it will remain our problem." Lieutenant Commander Baker looked up from his tactical station. "Sir, I'm reading some unusual energy signatures from the debris field. The pirate ships were carrying some kind of exotic technology. Scan everything, but don't get too close. I don't trust pirates to be honest about their weapons systems, even when they're dead." Dr. Vellana spoke up. "The Corvin use stolen technology from many different species. Some of it is unstable and dangerous. It would be safer to destroy the debris completely. Helen, can you clean up that debris field?" "With pleasure, sir. One moment." The Iron Resolve's secondary weapon systems came online, smaller but more precise than the main guns. A series of targeted strikes turned the floating wreckage into harmless atoms, ensuring that no one could salvage the pirate technology for future attacks. As the debris field vanished, Jake felt a sense of satisfaction. The immediate threat was over. The aliens were safe, and the pirates would think twice before attacking anyone else in this nebula. But he also realized that this incident had changed everything. "Amy, prepare a full report on this engagement for transmission to Earth Command. Include all sensor data on the alien ships, both friendly and hostile. This information needs to reach the proper authorities." "Yes, sir." "Should I include the linguistic data from our communication with the survivors?" Jake looked at Commander Zeltar and Dr. Vellana. "That's their decision to make. It's their language, their culture, their choice whether to share it with humanity." Dr. Vellana spoke quickly to Zeltar in their own language. After a brief conversation, she turned back to Jake. "We would be honored to share our language with your people. You have saved our lives and protected us from those who would do us harm. We trust you with our words as we trust you with our lives. Tony, set course for the edge of the nebula. We need to get our guests to better medical facilities. And I want to establish communication with both Earth Command and whatever government these people represent." As the Iron Resolve began moving through the nebula toward clear space, Jake reflected on what had just happened. Humanity had just fought its first interstellar war. It had lasted less than 10 minutes, but it had established Earth as a protective force in this region of space. More importantly, it had shown the galaxy something about human nature. When humans found others in need, they helped. When they found innocents under attack, they fought. When they discovered evil in the universe, they opposed it with everything they had. Commander Zeltar came to stand beside Jake as they watched the swirling gases of the nebula pass by on the main screen. "Your people," he said quietly. "They will be welcomed with great joy in our worlds. For too long, the peaceful species of this galaxy have lived in fear of raiders and aggressors. Today, that fear has been lessened. Today was just the beginning, Jake replied. If there are more pirates out there, more people who prey on the innocent, then we'll deal with them too. That's what humans do. Dr. Valana joined them at the viewing window. There is something you should know about our people, about our confederation. We have many worlds, many species, all dedicated to knowledge and peace. But we have always been victims, never protectors. She paused, looking out at the stars that were becoming visible as they left the nebula behind. With your help, perhaps that will change. Perhaps we can learn to be strong as well as wise, to protect others as you have protected us. Jake nodded. We'd be honored to help. After all, that's what allies do for each other. The word allies seemed to resonate with both aliens. They looked at each other, then at Jake, and smiled. The human race had just gained its first friends among the stars. Dr. Susan Wright had treated many difficult cases during her years as a military medical officer, but nothing had prepared her for alien patients. The medical bay of the Iron Resolve had been transformed into something resembling a cross between a hospital and a research laboratory. Commander Zeltar lay on a modified medical bed, connected to machines that monitored his vital signs while delivering carefully calibrated treatments. His blue-scaled skin was slowly regaining its natural color as the anti-radiation drugs worked to repair the damage caused by his failing ship. How do you feel? Dr. Wright asked, using the simple English words that the alien commander had learned over the past few days. Better, Zeltar replied, his pronunciation improving with practice. Much better. Your medicine is very good. Dr. Wright smiled and checked his readings. The alien's biology was different from human biology, but not impossibly so. Their blood was blue instead of red, their body temperature was slightly lower, and their metabolism was slower. But the basic principles of healing were universal. Dr. Valana has been very helpful, she explained to Captain Harrison, who was visiting the medical bay to check on their guests. She's taught me more about their physiology in 3 days than I could have learned in months of study. Jake looked around the medical bay at the 12 alien survivors. Most of them were sitting up now, talking quietly among themselves or working with human crew members to learn each other's languages. The youngest one, Navigator Pelta, was playing some kind of mathematical game with Lieutenant Foster. They're remarkable people, Jake observed. After everything they've been through, they're still curious, still eager to learn. Dr. Valana approached from her own medical bed, moving slowly but steadily. She had recovered faster than the others, possibly because she had been less exposed to the radiation from their failing ship. Captain Harrison, she said, her English much clearer than it had been initially. I have been thinking about what happens next. What do you mean? My people, the Zephyrian Coalition, they must be told about humans, about what you did for us, about your offer of friendship. But I think there is something more important we must discuss. Jake gestured for her to continue. The pirates you destroyed, they were not the only ones. The Corvin clans have been raiding peaceful ships for many generations. They have bases throughout this region of space, and they prey upon anyone they think is weak. She paused, looking around the medical bay at her recovering crew members. But they also report to others. There are species in this galaxy that are far worse than simple pirates, some that conquer entire worlds, some that destroy planets for resources, some that treat other intelligent beings as property to be bought and sold. Jake felt a chill at her words. How many hostile species are we talking about? At least a dozen major powers that are actively aggressive. Perhaps 50 smaller groups that raid and pillage, and hundreds of species that simply do not care what happens to others, as long as they are left alone. Commander Zeltar had been listening to their conversation from his medical bed. Now he struggled to sit up despite Dr. Wright's protests. Captain, you must understand. What you did in the nebula, destroying those pirate ships to protect strangers, that is something new in our galaxy. Most species fight only for themselves. What about your coalition? Jake asked. Surely you have military forces to protect your people. Dr. Valana shook her head sadly. We are scientists, explorers, teachers. We build beautiful cities and create wonderful art and music. But we are not warriors. When raiders attack our worlds, we evacuate or surrender. We have never learned to fight back. There are other peaceful species, Zeltar added. The Ethereal Collective, the Harmony Worlds, the Unity Federation. All of us dedicated to knowledge and growth. All of us victims when the predators come. Jake was beginning to understand the situation. The galaxy was divided between aggressive species that took what they wanted by force, and peaceful species that suffered in silence. There was no middle ground, no protectors, no one willing to stand up for the innocent. Until now. How many peaceful species are there? He asked. Perhaps 200 civilizations that have chosen the path of knowledge over the path of war. Dr. Villana replied. Billions of beings who want nothing more than to live in peace and learn about the universe. And they're all defenseless? Not defenseless, Zeltar corrected. We have technology, resources, intelligence, but we lack the will to fight, the unity to stand together against our enemies. Each species faces the darkness alone. Jake walked to the main viewing window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were hundreds of civilizations that had chosen peace over violence, knowledge over conquest, and they were being preyed upon by those who had chosen differently. What would happen if someone were willing to protect them? He asked quietly. Dr. Villana and Commander Zeltar exchanged glances. They had been hoping he would ask that question. Everything would change, Dr. Villana said simply. For the first time in thousands of years, the peaceful worlds would have hope. But it would not be easy, Zeltar warned. The aggressive species have vast fleets, powerful weapons, deep-rooted traditions of conquest. They would not give up their prey without a fight. Jake turned back to face the two alien leaders. What about your coalition government? Would they be willing to form an alliance with Earth? More than willing, Dr. Villana replied immediately. We have resources you need. Advanced technology, star charts, knowledge of other species, and you have something we need desperately. The courage to fight for what is right. I'll need to discuss this with Earth Command, of course. An interstellar military alliance isn't something one ship captain can decide on his own. We understand, Zeltar said, but captain, time is important. Every day that passes, more innocent beings die at the hands of raiders and conquerors. If humans are truly willing to be protectors, then the sooner the galaxy knows about you, the sooner the killing can stop. Dr. Wright approached with a data tablet in her hands. Captain, I've been analyzing the medical data from our patients. Their biology is compatible with ours in some interesting ways. I think we could develop joint medical protocols, maybe even work together on research projects. What kind of research? They have treatments for diseases that we've never conquered. We have surgical techniques that they've never developed. Together, we could save lives across both species. Jake nodded. Medical cooperation was a good place to start building trust between civilizations. Navigator Pelta, the youngest of the alien survivors, approached nervously. She had been working with Amy Foster to learn English, and her pronunciation was already quite good. Captain Harrison, sir, she said formally. May I ask you a question? Of course. Why did you save us? We are strangers to you, different from your people. You risked your ship and your crew for beings you had never seen before. In our experience, species do not do such things. Jake looked at the young alien, thinking about how to answer. How could he explain humanity's drive to protect others? How could he describe the moral code that made humans risk everything for strangers? Because it was the right thing to do, he said finally. Because when someone needs help, you help them. Because the strong should protect the weak, not prey upon them. Pelta tilted her head, trying to understand. But you gained nothing from saving us. You could have been killed fighting the pirates. Why take such risks for no reward? Who says there was no reward? Jake asked with a smile. We gained friends. We learned that humans are not alone in the universe. We discovered that there are other species out there who value knowledge and peace over conquest and destruction. He gestured around the medical bay, where humans and aliens were working together, sharing knowledge and building understanding. Most importantly, we proved to ourselves that humans are who we think we are. We're the kind of people who help others, who stand up to bullies, who protect the innocent. That's worth more than any treasure. Dr. Villana spoke quietly to the other aliens in their own language, translating Jake's words. When she finished, they all looked at him with expressions of wonder and respect. Captain, she said, my people have a saying, in the darkest night, even the smallest star can guide travelers home. We thought we were lost in darkness when our ship failed, but humans proved to be the star that saved us. Maybe it's time for the darkness to end, Jake replied. Maybe it's time for all the peaceful species to stand together, to support each other, to show the galaxy that knowledge and compassion are stronger than fear and violence. Commander Zeltar struggled to his feet, despite Dr. Wright's protests. He stood as straight as his injuries would allow and looked Jake directly in the eyes. Captain Harrison, on behalf of the Zephyrian Coalition, and all the peaceful worlds that suffer in silence, I formally request that Earth consider joining us in alliance. Together we can bring hope to the galaxy." Jake extended his hand and Zeltar grasped it in the human gesture of agreement he had learned. "Commander Zeltar, I can't speak for all of humanity, but I can promise you that we will consider your request with the seriousness it deserves. And personally, I think the galaxy could use a few more protectors." As they shook hands, both men knew that they were witnessing the birth of something new. An alliance between species based not on conquest or profit, but on the simple belief that 3 months later, Captain Jake Harrison stood on the observation deck of the Zephyrian space station New Hope, watching the most incredible sight he had ever witnessed. Through the transparent walls, he could see dozens of ships from different species, all gathered for the signing of what historians would later call the Galactic Protection Alliance. The Iron Resolve floated majestically among the alien vessels, her dark hull polished and gleaming. She was no longer just an Earth warship on patrol duty. She had become the flagship of humanity's first interstellar diplomatic mission, and her name was already becoming legend throughout the peaceful worlds. "Magnificent, isn't it?" Dr. Villana said as she joined him at the viewing wall. Her blue scales had fully healed from the radiation damage, and she looked healthier than she had when they first met in the dying corridors of the stellar dawn. "I never imagined anything like this," Jake admitted. "When we first received your distress signal, I thought we were just rescuing a few stranded scientists. I had no idea we were about to change the balance of power in the galaxy." Dr. Villana smiled. "Perhaps that is what makes humans so special. You do not think in terms of galactic politics or strategic advantage. You simply see people who need help, and you help them." Through the station's corridors, beings from dozens of different species moved together in something that would have been impossible just months before. The tall, graceful ethereals with their silvery skin walked alongside the small, furry Harmony folk. The crystalline Unity Federation delegates glowed softly as they spoke with human diplomats through translation devices. "The news is spreading faster than we expected," Commander Zeltar reported as he approached them. He now wore the uniform of the Coalition's new Military Advisory Council, a position created specifically to help coordinate defense efforts between species. "What kind of news?" Jake asked. 3 more pirate bases have been abandoned in the Outer Rim sectors. Word has spread that humans are hunting raiders, and many of the smaller criminal groups are fleeing to safer hunting grounds. That's good news. Even better, Zeltar continued. The Corvin High Command has sent a message through diplomatic channels. They want to negotiate boundaries. They're offering to stay out of Coalition space in exchange for safe passage to their traditional territories. Jake raised an eyebrow. Pirates want to negotiate? Apparently, your demonstration in the nebula was more effective than we realized. The survivors you allowed to escape have spread stories about human military capability throughout the raider networks. Many of them are more interested in finding easier prey than facing your weapons. Dr. Villana activated a data display showing a map of local space. Look at this. The green areas represent space that has been declared safe for civilian travel since the alliance was announced. It's more territory than we've been able to secure in the past century. Jake studied the map with amazement. The green zones covered dozens of star systems, protecting hundreds of worlds and billions of peaceful beings. And it had all started with one rescue mission in a remote nebula. "Captain Harrison," a voice called from across the observation deck. Jake turned to see Ambassador Ellen Chen approaching. She was Earth's first official representative to alien governments, and she had arrived on the fastest ship Earth Command could build. "Ambassador," Jake replied, offering a formal salute. "At ease, Captain. I wanted to speak with you before the signing ceremony begins. Earth Command has reviewed your reports and they're very impressed with what you've accomplished out here." "Thank you, ma'am, but I can't take credit for this. My crew did their jobs and our new allies made it all possible. Which brings me to my next point. Command wants to know if you're interested in a permanent assignment as Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Protection Alliance." Jake felt his heart skip. "You mean stay out here? Continue working with the Coalition?" The Iron Resolve would become the flagship of a new joint fleet. Human ships working alongside vessels from the peaceful worlds, patrolling the space lanes and protecting innocent travelers from raiders and aggressors. Jake looked out at the gathered ships, then at his new alien friends. Commander Zeltar was watching him hopefully, while Dr. Villana tried to hide her excitement. "What about my crew? Would they be reassigned?" That would be their choice. Earth Command is recruiting volunteers for what they're calling the Deep Space Protection Service. But anyone who wants to return to Earth would be free to do so. Jake activated his communicator. Iron Resolve, this is the captain. Lieutenant Foster's voice came back immediately. Iron Resolve here, sir. Go ahead. Amy, patch me through to all hands. I have an announcement to make. Within moments, Jake was connected to every member of his crew, scattered throughout the station and the ship as they enjoyed shore leave and cultural exchanges with their new alien friends. People, I've just been offered the chance to make our mission out here permanent. Earth Command wants the Iron Resolve to become the flagship of a joint human-alien fleet dedicated to protecting peaceful worlds from aggressors. He paused, looking out at the stars. I'm not going to order anyone to stay. This would be a volunteer assignment, probably lasting several years. We'd be far from Earth, working with alien species we're still learning to understand, facing dangers we can't predict. The response came immediately from Chief Engineer Pete Collins. Sir, permission to speak freely? Granted, Pete. Captain, I've been working alongside Zephyrian engineers for the past month. They've taught me things about quantum mechanics that Earth's best scientists are still trying to figure out. If we go home now, we'll be throwing away the chance to learn technologies that could benefit all of humanity. Dr. Wright's voice joined the conversation. Sir, I've made more medical breakthroughs in 3 months than I did in 10 years of practice on Earth. These people have cures for diseases we've never even heard of. How can we walk away from that? One by one, the crew members voiced their opinions. Sergeant Davis wanted to stay because he had never felt more proud of being human than when he was protecting innocent aliens from raiders. Amy Foster had become fascinated by the challenge of developing universal translation systems. Even the newest crew members who had families waiting back on Earth spoke about the importance of the mission. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Every single member of the Iron Resolve's crew volunteered to stay. Well then, Jake said with a smile, I guess that settles it. Ambassador Chen, please inform Earth Command that we accept the assignment. Ambassador Chen nodded with obvious satisfaction. I'll send the message immediately. And Captain, there's one more thing. Earth is sending 3 more ships to join your fleet. They should arrive within 6 months. Jake felt a surge of pride. Earth was committing to this alliance, backing up its promises with real ships and real people. The signing ceremony took place in the station's main assembly hall, a beautiful chamber with walls that showed real-time images of the stars outside. Representatives from 47 different species gathered to sign the treaty that would create the Galactic Protection Alliance. Jake watched as beings of every conceivable shape and form added their signatures to the historic document. Some signed with hands similar to human hands. Others used tentacles, claws, or energy fields. But they all shared the same goal: to create a galaxy where the peaceful could live without fear of the violent. When it came time for the human signature, Ambassador Chen stepped forward with quiet dignity. But before she could sign, she turned to Jake. Captain Harrison, this alliance exists because of what you and your crew did in the Corvin Nebula. Would you do the honor of signing for humanity? Jake felt the weight of history as he took the ceremonial pen. With careful strokes, he wrote his name on the treaty, officially binding Earth to its new allies among the stars. As the ceremony concluded, Commander Zeltar approached him with something that looked like a medal made of crystallized starlight. This is the Order of Galactic Service, he explained. It has never been awarded to anyone outside the Coalition before, but the Council voted unanimously that you and your crew should be the first recipients. Jake accepted the honor on behalf of his crew, but he knew the real reward was not a medal. It was the knowledge that humans had found their place in the galaxy, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Dr. Villana joined them, carrying a datapad with the latest intelligence reports. The effects of the alliance are already being felt across the galaxy, she reported. 6 aggressive species have begun peace negotiations with their neighbors rather than risk human intervention. Trade routes that have been closed for decades are reopening, and refugee flows from war-torn worlds have decreased by 40%. It's just the beginning, Jake replied. We've shown the galaxy that bullies can be stopped, that innocent people don't have to suffer in silence. But now comes the hard part, making sure the peace lasts. Over the following months, the Iron Resolve and her crew settled into their new role as guardians of the galactic peace. They patrolled the space lanes, responded to distress calls, and gradually built a reputation that made pirates and raiders think twice before attacking peaceful vessels. Jake often stood on his bridge, looking out at the stay,